y'all, for some Speed Bug fans. Well, for the ones that follow me on Instagram, and for the ones that don't, I'm gonna let you know. The Ducatis are gone. As you see by the garage and the sad tone music, so is the R1M. And it was a long time coming, but they had to go. And I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on just the sold posts and stuff like that, that I'm sure a lot of you are here for exclusively the Ducati content. But let me first and foremost say the bike content is still going to keep coming. The car content is still going to keep coming. This is not the end of the channel or anything like that. And of course, as a lot of other people said, hey, you sell them, you always come back a little bit stronger with something bigger and badder, and which is the case and is true. But do I have anything to replace them as of right now? No, and I have no intention, so don't get your hopes up like the V4R is coming or anything like that. That's a hell no. I am not going to be getting that bike, and maybe unless I win the lottery. But the bikes that you see behind me and also behind the camera are here to stay, meaning the Grom, the S1000, and for now, obviously, the GSXR. The other GSXR is my girl, so obviously hers is here to stay. And at the time that I walk around and making this video, there is still one Ducati actually left in here, but it's already been paid for, sold to a subscriber, and he will be picking it up here within the next day or so. So I'm actually filming this video beforehand, before he actually comes and picks up his bike. But the bike is sold, I don't own it anymore, and he's coming down from out of state so that he can pick up his new bike. So congratulations to him on his new Ducati. Now, on to the meat and potatoes of this video on why I sold all the Ducatis and let them go. And I didn't let them go. It was very hard for me to cope with on letting them go, because I'm not gonna lie, I liked coming into my garage and seeing them and looking at them and being pretty, but never, since I've actually been in this garage, never have I once been like, you know what, it's gonna be a Panigale day. You know what, I really can't wait to ride my Panigale. And I always loved looking at them, but I didn't like to ride them. Unless I was doing something absurd with them, like going super fast or anything like that, because I didn't like the heat. The comfort was not there, to say the least. And I'm not even going to get into all the reliable mechanical issues or anything like that, which I know a lot of you have commented and say, it's very unfortunate for you, Speed Bug, that you've been plagued with all of these gremlins. Yeah, it kind of is. But first and foremost, let me say, they never left me stranded anywhere, except the X Diablo. None of them threw rods or anything like that, or, so did I have any major issues with any of them right off the bat? No, I did not. It was just more annoying little things like that, but I'm going to touch on that here again. So I sold them because realizing that I looked at it as a normal asset. It's like when I'm buying anything else. If I buy something, I will purchase it, utilize it, and then when I'm ready to sell it, I part ways with it. Of course, I'm not going to get what I paid for it. Of course, it's going to have some type of depreciation, and I was fine with that, and I'm okay with that, as almost anything that I'm going to purchase. Doesn't matter if it's a car, motorcycle, or anything like that. So, purchasing them, seeing how much they're worth, what I paid for them and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? I keep them for a year or two, lose a couple grand, maybe 5,000-6,000, and I sell them. Even after making the payments on them or stuff like that, that's reasonable, and I'm okay with that. I wasn't looking to make money. They're not a classic car like a Chevelle or something where I'm gonna buy it and it's gonna appreciate and make me money. No, absolutely not. So let's get off that because people out there that thinking that they're going to buy any of these things and they're going to make them money. If it does, great, but they're all depreciating assets. So I purchased them, and when it came time to sell them, when I first listed the first one, was the first, negative sign of that this bike isn't worth anything, and meaning all four of them. And I was like, Now some people are offering, 16 and 15,000, and this is right when I got it, when they're, 25, 30 G's out the door, for, a new V4. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to give it away because there's no way. That's not even half of the value of what it's worth. So I kept it, it was no big deal. Then I once relisted, but I was never like actively selling any of them. I just said, okay, you know what, I'm going to sell them. If somebody buys them, great. If not, fuck it, no big deal. They don't get a bike, and I get to still look at my pretty art piece in my garage. So I kept and left it at that. So then after this last moment, and there was a few other things that happened with the motorcycle. After it happened with the motorcycle, meaning like small mechanical issues, I'm like, you know what, I'm really sick and tired of these things. I spend more time wrenching on them to keep them perfect because all my bikes stay in tip-top perfect shape. Whether it's cleaning them after every ride, I clean them, wipe the wheels, lube the chain, this, that, whatever. That's why I never have any like major issues with my bikes and they don't break down or anything like that because I catch everything with, the preventative maintenance before it happens. So as I'm going and I'm like, you know what, finally I'm going to cope with it, I'm going to sell them, no big deal. So I go and list them for sale and stuff like that, and people are still offering like the same thing, 13, 14, 15,000, and I'm like, what are you guys crazy? I'm like, there's no way I'm going to take this amount of money for these bikes, 8, 9,000, 10,000 or whatever for some other ones, 7,000 for some other ones, 12, 15,000 for some other. It's just, it was a mess. I'm like, nah. I'm like, that would make me so far upside down. I'd have to come up with so much cash. It's not gonna happen. So anyway, long story short, I'm like, you know what? Let me go to the dealer. Let me call some other places, and let me also see what they sell at auctions for. Come to find out, the things that these people were offering were the actual legit prices, and it didn't matter how much I'd paid. So where I'm going with all of this is that I had that V4 for 11 months. Excluding all of like the issues that I had with it, let's just put that aside, right? Excluding all of the issues, the bike was worth less than 50% of its value. And I said, holy shit. I said, what do you mean it's worth less than? I said, how is it worth less than? I said, if you buy a car for $20,000, you drive it off the lot and stuff like that. For the first year, you're gonna take the biggest hit, absolutely. And then maybe you sell it with 1,000 or 2, maybe you get 15 back for it, okay? But when you buy something for $20,000 and then you come back, a couple months later or 10 months later and they say, oh, we're only gonna give you 8, that's a huge problem. And there's only one Ducati that held its value better than others, but they all were pretty much worth nothing. So since day one, and let me also elaborate on this. Those are the only bikes that I financed. So I financed them because a couple of them I got 0% interest because of the promotion that Ducati was running, and then the other ones were like 1 or 2%. So during that time I was always making like double payments and stuff like that, and if the payment was $400, I was making $800. If it was $500, I was making $1,000. Whatever it was, I was doing it so that I could knock down and start building some equity inside of these things at the time when I ever do get ready to sell them. To knock out, the taxes and all that other stuff, because you don't get that money back anyway. That's, you have to pay Uncle Sam for. So, as I'm sitting here paying on these, double payments for 11 months and stuff like that, in over $2,000 a month and stuff like that, and I was perfectly fine with that. And then come to find out, it would have made no difference. It would have just put me bigger into the hole when it came time to sell them. So the simple fact is that when I did buy the R1M, that was a specialty bike, but I knew that bike was going to hold its value a little bit more because I looked really hard for a used one, and I couldn't really find any of them that were used in the 18 model because it was still 18 when I bought it. But even the 17s and stuff like that, they still really held their values, and they were so close to the new price. I'm like, oh, an extra 1,000 or 2, I'll just buy it new. No big deal. So I owned the R1M, and I was so far upside down on these Ducatis that I had to sell another one just to offset the debt because I didn't want to carry any of the debt with me. It was just stupid to sell, 4 bikes and then, keep the extra money or take the money out of my bank account. I like seeing the money in my bank account for a nice, rainy day or a hard asset or anything like that. So it was so far upside down, I decided to sell the R1M, and I did. And that was actually the first one to sell of all the bikes that I actually listed. The first one anyone contacted me was the R1M. Sold that and took the residual money and paid off the Ducatis. Now, you all know how much that bike costs. I don't have to tell you. A quick Google search will tell you how much that bike costs and what it MSRP's for, and you ain't getting it for much cheaper than MSRP, especially the out-the-door price, and that just tells you how far I was upside down. Now, I even got deals on some of these Ducatis because I bought so many and sent so many referrals, and I still was upside down. So now, before all of you jump on me and say, oh, well, whoever you sold them for, whatever you agreed to the price for, you got hosed, you got gypped. Well, I really didn't, because I looked at auction and stuff like that, and where they were selling all around the United States, you know, where I'm currently located, and my bike was a V4, and the V4S is, you know, the next model up. Well, just to give you some heads up, the V4S in the last 12 months, there was one that sold into an auction, and it was in the last 12 months, and it had 180 miles on it, and it only sold for 16 grand. That's freaking horrible. So that's going to let you know that mine was significantly less than that, and mine had, I think, 1,000 miles on it. I think what it was, I can't remember it off the top of my head, maybe 1,200, 1,400 miles, somewhere around there. So all that money that I paid for it, you know, it really wasn't worth anything. And to put it into like perspective, it's like an expensive piece of artwork. If you paid $1 million for it today, it was worth $1 million because you're the sucker that paid for it. Now, when you sell it tomorrow, if the next person only wants to pay $1, it's only worth $1. So, again, I'm not faulting Ducati, meaning the dealership or anything that I sold it to. The owner that I sold the 3 bikes to, I still have a great relationship with him. I think he made me a fair price, and he even gave me a couple thousand over retail for what he could do. Remember, he's a dealer. He's in the business to buy and sell bikes, not to hold them, and so that he could sell them. And he gave me a more than fair deal, especially as a package deal, to unload these because they were just costing me more money to have them sit in the garage, even though they weren't accruing any interest and they weren't accruing any miles. My 959, I think, has like 850 miles or something like that, and it still wasn't worth what was even owed on it after making significant payments and putting money down. So hats to the new owner. They got a hell of a deal and a smoking deal. Congratulations to them. But no, I had to fork out a good hefty penny to pay off the bank and stuff like that, and I'm okay with because now that it's gone and off my plate. So thank God I didn't pay them off 100% fully, because then I kind of would have been out a little bit more money. But you live and learn the lessons and stuff like that. And another reason, you know, and what prompted me to sell them, what I wanted to touch on them before, was that it was a lot of small annoyances that really chipped and irked my blood, which I have elaborated in a lot of other videos. You know, small things that just really pissed me off, that I felt that if I was buying the pinnacle brand of sport bikes or anything like that, that I would have gotten something where the quality control would have just been a little bit better. And that's just my personal opinion. Now, some other people will think different, and this is not a fact or anything like that. This is my opinion. Some of them are facts, but you know, the seats and stuff like that, how the gap and how there's not the correct proper latching, the clutch levers, how they leak, and the master cylinders. And I'm not going to sit here and say specifically which bike, but they consistently leak when you go fast. How the reservoir caps don't seal, the handlebar clip-ons consistently come loose, the bolts in the chain sprockets, the shifter levers coming unloose, the foot pegs coming loose, all of these small things. Like I said, the bike never left me stranded, but these are all things that Ducati owners never really want to bring up, because they either are tech savvy enough and mechanical savvy enough to just, you know, go ahead and tighten up the loose bolt. And I'm not going to go to the dealer to say, hey, can you tighten up this fairing bolt or this, that, whatever. No, I'll just tighten it up myself. But there's every single time that I rode this bike, there was something that came loose, almost like very similar. It's like a Harley from like the 80s and the 90s, where the vibration was just so extensive that the whole bike will just vibrate loose over time. And my buddies that I consistently maintenance and work on, it's his dream bike. He loves it, and he really wanted it and never wanted to get rid of it. And now it's funny that he has it, and he's like, you know, every time I ride this thing, you have to wrench on it or do something to it, and it's nothing that it's major, but it's minor, and it's just all the time. So is it like an everyday bike? It is absolutely not, but if you occasionally ride it or, you know, take it to the track or something like that because you are looking it over and wrenching on it, and you have another bike in the stable to ride all the time, it's going to definitely be a little bit better. Aside from the heat and the comfort and everything like that, I'm not really worried about that. And one thing a lot of Ducati owners won't tell you, because they're so, you know, brand loyalist, is all the small problems, like I mentioned with these bolts and stuff like that that continuously come loose, to say there isn't any issues. Again, if you're going to charge double the cost of the competition, it's got to go somewhere, and I know it doesn't cost that much extra to draft up a design, but the quality control just needs to be finished. It needs to be done, and it's just not there. And a lot of the owners and stuff will say, no, it's not really an issue, that's just part of ownership, or this, that. No, that's bullshit, okay? When the competition, even this one or that one next to it, doesn't have any issues. I mean, hell, the Groms are, you know, 7,000, 10,000 miles deep and have had no issues, besides maybe a chain. But they told you the chain was, you know, shit from Jump Street. But if you don't do wheelies and you don't stunt it, you can get 10,000 miles out of a stock chain. But that's another thing. So I mentioned that I covered and have the whole line of Ducatis pretty much that I owned in my garage, and it wasn't that one really was more problematic than the other. Some sure, but they all had the same exact issues in the way that they were being constructed and being put together, and the problems that happened with all of them. It was the same issues with all of them, like how the brakes would consistently leak. They were great brakes when they worked, but they would consistently leak. The reservoirs would leak and stuff like that. It was just an annoyance. So that's another topic that I did want to cover. So before I wrap all this up and stuff, I just want to say, do I still think they're a great bike? Absolutely. Do they serve a purpose in what they do? Absolutely. Is it the bike for me or the brand for me? Probably not. Me personally, I don't think they're worth half is what they charge, considering the fact that the quality control is just not there, and the maintenance is just not there as opposed to some of the other bikes and its competitors. But if you want to have that look, and I've mentioned in a lot of other things, you know, then it may be worth it to you. You can't put a price on fun, but you can put a price on what you feel is justifiable, and the price that they charge for the bike, given the fact of some of the things that you do have to do with them, really just wasn't it for me. And I just hope this is just a lesson to some other people, and hopefully it just helps you out in buying your next decision with your next bike. So a lot of other things, you know, that prompted me, you know, to sell it. But then once I really saw the value of what these, you know, motorcycles worth, like the Hyper Motard, where it was really only worth like $7 grand, and the ones that want to argue with me and say that it's not, well, go try and sell yours and see how much you really get an offer for, not versus what you paid for it and what you owe on it. And you'll see that, hey, they're not worth it. And if you get a great and a better deal than that $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 or whatever that you declared that it's worth more, then you should sell it if you feel that it's time to go. But it's only worth what somebody wants to pay for it at that time, but it's definitely not going to be worth anything closely to what you paid for it. And that's kind of also what rubbed me the wrong way with the whole brand of Ducati. I think they're still a gorgeous bike, probably the most prettiest bike still ever made. And I was at the dealer and looking at them like, God, man, they're so pretty. But I had to just keep walking because I just didn't want to be plagued with its issues or anything like that. And you guys know that I'm a diehard Suzuki fan, and I love my Suzuki, and this is my 6th one. But at 15,000 miles, when you pretty much have to take the engine apart to check all the valves and the timing and do all that stuff, you know, even as much as I hate Yamaha, I sold my first GSXR with over 40,000 miles and had hundreds and hundreds of passes on it at the racetrack with stock clutch. I checked the valves and everything on that bike, I think at 25,000 just to see if they were in spec. They were just like they were from the day they rolled out of the factory. All I did on that bike, chains, sprockets, tires, and brakes. And that's more than I could say for a lot of other Ducatis. You know, I don't have to deal with oil leaks and stuff like that, where, and, you know, hundreds of pieces of silicone, that the whole engine is silicone together because they don't believe in gaskets and stuff like that. I just feel like the bike, it was designed for racing real quick, you know, at best, and looks, you know, to be an art sculpture, and everything else with the repairability and stuff like that, that was never really a factor in their design. And to ride that on the streets and to be comfortable and stuff like that, maybe as an every now and then weekend toy or something like that, but not as a commuter and in a daily rider and things like that. And it just rubbed me the wrong way. But most of all, that if I paid $18,000 for something and then 10 months later it's only worth, you know, less than half, we're saying 8, is what's the point? And I like I said, it's not a crazy, it doesn't have to be an investment to the point where, hey, no problem that it's not I'm not going to make me money, but not 10 months later it's worth less than 50%. You want to be under 50%, that's fine. Let me put 10, 12,000 miles on it and let it be 2, 3 years old, maybe 4 years old or something like that, and I'm okay with that, but not 10 months. That's a little bit ridiculous. So the brand itself kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I was kind of plagued with its things and consistently tightening the chains and, you know, having to adjust the rear wheel and having to have all these special sprockets. And I knew a lot of this going into it, but I didn't know how much I had to stay on top of it all the frickin' time. And every single time I made a change or did something, I mean, something as simple as changing the riding modes, and the screen would wig out and the check engine light would come on because the computer would freeze and stuff like that. It was just really annoying. It was just so fucking annoying to the point where it was like, you know, it's like the bike was still in the concept mode and into pre-production, and I just didn't care for it, and I just kind of had to part ways with it and let it go. And I didn't want to carry any debt and use a bunch of cash that I have to let them go. So you just have to cut your losses. And I'm happy that I got to experience it and experience the brand. And for the ones that want to say, oh, you just had a shit bike, this, that. No, I pretty much had the whole Ducati lineup of motorcycles here in my garage. So the ones that want to sit here and tell me, oh, you need to try this one, you need to try that one. No, I rode them all. That includes the Monsters, that includes the Scrambler and stuff like that. I just didn't buy them. But they're still all the same shit. And no. Absolutely not. So I'm not going to sit here and advocate and say, oh, the BMW and the GSXR is a better brand. No, it's better for me. And if the Ducati works for you as a viewer and stuff like that, by all means, but it's better for me. And for now, I'm going to keep these, and I'm going to continue the channel with these. And of course, the Gromsky, I still got the Gromsky. She ain't going nowhere. So that's kind of why I, you know, sold them, and I figured you guys would want to know. For the ones that want to, you know, have any questions or anything like that, feel free to comment below. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not covering it up, and I'm not going to give you all the details on everything that I lost, but I lost a lot of money, significantly a lot of money on letting all of these go based on what they were worth, and a lot. Let's just say more than $20,000, and that's what I had to do to get out of them. You want to tell me you should have held on to them to, you know, maybe they would appreciate. I couldn't take that chance. I couldn't take the risk to lose that much more any single day. So it's an expensive speeding ticket. You learn and you live. And then, hey, if I see one for sale and they're asking 10, you know, hey, maybe I'll offer 5, and to me that's what it's worth at that day. But other than that, I'll stick with some of the other bikes. And I mean, shit, hell, that one was like 15 grand brand new, and it's still worth 13. And even this one, you know, this bike was expensive, you know, pushing almost 30K when it was new, but it still has a good resale value now, but it's 5 years old with, you know, 9,000 miles. That's perfectly reasonable. But if they would have told me, hey, if you pay 30 grand for a BMW and now it's only worth 10 months later, you'd be freaking pissed too. So it almost be the point, like, why did you buy it? Why are you paying for it? You know, at that point you should have just waited to maybe get one used, or just hell not buy it at all, because it's technically not worth anything. But that's another topic for another day. So we're going to continue this channel with these bikes, and then, but there will probably be a new one coming in the future soon. Which one, I can't tell you guys, but it's going to be a new direction with the channel and stuff like that. But we still have the Corvette, we still have the Trans Am, we still have the Silverado, the trailer is still coming and stuff, so we can do the track events and things like that. But for now, we're going to keep these, lighten the load, and now I don't have to turn wrenches and worry about anything. I am Ducati free. I still enjoy them, love to look at them. I'll ride my friend's Ducati, but I don't want to have anything to do with them for now. So figured you guys would want to know, but let me wrap this up. This has kind of been a long video, and thanks for tuning in. For the ones that still want to see cool things, I will still do things as people lend me their bikes and their Ducatis, but I don't know if Speedbug is going to be owning anymore for now. So that's going to wrap it up here for today's video. If you guys like what you saw, Facebook, Instagram, @Speedbug, same name here as YouTube. And we'll see all of y'all for more episodes